Hey everyone, welcome to my talk, Ageism and Interfaces. We're going to talk about what ageism is, how it shows up in our digital products, and what we can do about it. So, quick introduction. I'm Alex, my pronouns are she, her. I'm 39 years old, which I felt like was relevant to this talk because I'm a geriatric millennial, which I just find cute in the context of this talk. I'm a white woman with long blondie brownie hair. I'm wearing a gray sweater today because my cool accessibility shirts don't fit currently. I live in Georgian Bay, Canada. I'm a mom to 1 to 2 humans, depending on when you watch this talk. I'm due in May, 2 dogs and 1 cat. I'm a freelance accessibility specialist, which means I do all kinds of fun accessibility work across the product stack. And I'm a RuPaul's Drag Race enthusiast. So, currently watching season 15, very excited. And I'm a maker of many things, mostly musical things and food-based things. Let's just go over the agenda for this talk so everybody knows what to expect. First, we'll talk about ageism and the various forms of ageism. Then we'll explore the digital divide and what many refer to as the gray divide. Then we'll talk about what opportunities the tech industry has in confronting ageism. And lastly, we'll talk about how we can do better as an industry, including what seniors are actually asking for. Quick disclaimer, this is a big subject. I can't cover it all. We're discussing a broad group who can't be uniformly categorized. Some terms used, such as the gray divide, might be offensive to some, and my apologies if that's the case. I read over 60 articles and had 58 survey responses in preparation for this talk. So I really tried to cut things down, but it's a lot of information. Appreciate the interpreters going through what will be a lot of words today. Just as a note, there are long article names, including jargon terms on some of my slides. For the sake of getting through the content, I'm just going to read those article names to provide attribution. But there's slides at the end that have links to a lot of the resources, so you'll be able to learn more and sort of Google some of those terms at that time. Okay, first, let's talk about ageism. There's a couple of definitions I want to refer to here. So the classic Merriam-Webster dictionary definition is ageism is prejudice or discrimination against a particular age group, and especially the elderly. I also really like this definition from the Ontario Human Rights Commission, which says it's a socially constructed way of thinking about older persons based on negative attitudes and stereotypes about aging, and a tendency to structure society based on the assumption that everyone is young, thereby failing to respond appropriately to the real needs of older persons. So I really like how this situates ageism as an individual thing and a societal thing, and how we kind of shape our society around it. The article Inclusion of Older Adults in the Research and Design of Digital Technology says, aging is stereotypically framed as a problem needed to be fixed, and older adults are considered to be frail and incompetent. So this is what we call interventionist logic. Essentially, old age is the problem to be fixed rather than ageism being the problem. And of course, tech can save the day because tech can save the day with every problem in the world. This completely disregards the fact that exclusion of older adults is the actual problem. So there's 3 types of ageism that typically get explored in academic literature. Macroageism, which refers to cultural, social values, and policy. Meso-ageism, which is about groups and organizations. And microageism, which is about the thoughts, emotions, and actions of individuals. I'm going to talk a bit about each of these. Macroageism, so again, cultural, social values, and policy. So things like cultural associations about seniors, stereotypes, and things like government retirement policies. There's lots of factors that contribute to this, but a couple I want to highlight. One is societal modernization. So our society becoming more modern, including innovations in tech and medicine. Essentially, the status of wise elders diminishes, and this whole concept of survival of the fittest becomes less applicable as people are aging more and growing into older age more commonly. In this construct, we tend to favor productivity, efficiency, and competition under capitalism. Another big factor is societal level bias or stereotyping. We're all influenced by exposure to negative stereotypes and tropes about the elderly, and this has a big cultural impact. And we'll get into bias a little further into the talk. The article, When Do Older Adults Become Disabled? Social and Health Antecedents of Perceived Disability in a Panel Study of the Oldest Old. Now, in this case, oldest old refers to folks over 80, says, health has long been identified as a marker of social status. Persons who are viewed as vigorous and are well considered to have a higher capacity for fulfilling social expectations and obligations. So on a societal level, we have this bias that favors youth, and this impacts people's status and importance in society on a macro level. The second form is Meso-ageism. So this is about groups and organizations. So think workplaces, healthcare systems, that type of thing. Some examples would be in a workplace, folks can be considered too old to be hired, or they are aged out of opportunity as they are seen as approaching retirement age. Think about insurance systems. They'll only cover up to a certain age, or the premiums go way up over a certain age. And these things are influenced by a lack of what we call intergenerational contact, meaning different age groups are less socially engaged with each other. And this can really affect how organizations and groups work. The article, Ageism and Digital Technology, Policy Measures to Address Ageism, says, a recent study found that healthcare professionals hold highly negative attitudes towards older persons' abilities to use healthcare digital technology. This could potentially lead to discriminatory practice, such as not offering technology-based treatment or assistive technologies to older patients based on the ageist belief that they won't be able to use it. So this example of meso-ageism, we can see a very clear danger in ageism within medical organizations where folks are just not being offered equal access to care based on bias. On this slide, I'm showing an image of a tweet from a person named Jonathan Taylor that has been retweeted by the account Everyday Ageism. Check them out on Twitter. It says, so apparently you don't qualify for a postgraduate loan if you're over 60. If that's not horrendous ageism, I don't know what is. This is another example of meso-ageism, where an education system makes assumptions about the value of educating older adults, likely based on beliefs that seniors will not meaningfully contribute to the workforce if they pursue an education. Again, favoring perceptions of productivity, which connect to macro-ageism in a modernizing society. And the third form is microageism. So this is about thoughts, emotions, and actions of the individual. It can be externalized, meaning younger people having ageist concepts about older people, or it can be internalized, meaning seniors holding ageist views about themselves and their worth. And this is really connected to negative stereotypes and biases about aging and the societal value that seniors play. The article, When Do Older Adults Become Disabled? Social and Health Antecedents of Perceived Disability in a Panel Study of the Oldest Old, says, a high portion of older adults who are classified as disabled do not consider themselves disabled. Interestingly, a lot of seniors reject disability as part of their identity. And there's kind of two primary reasons for this. One that's a little bit more benign is, a lot of these things are considered normative aging. So a lot of things like, a decline in hearing, a decline in vision, mild cognitive decline, a lot of folks will just consider that part of normative aging and not really consider it a disability. But the other big factor here is internalized ableism. From continual exposure to negative stereotypes, seeing aging and disability as less valued in society. In the survey that I put out leading into this talk, I had only 24.1% of respondents report having a disability. And on this slide, I'm showing a graph. It's a bar chart showing percentages of survey respondents. 24.1 identify as having a disability. but 60.1% use Zoom settings on their devices at least some of the time, and 65.4% use captions when watching or streaming video at least some of the time. So maybe there's a bit of a disconnect here. Folks are using things like Zooming and captions, but are not identifying as having even mild disabilities. There's lots of reasons to use these things like Zoom and captions. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a disability in the mix, but it could. Just up against some statistics, 43.4% of Canadians over 65 are disabled. So 20% more than responded on my survey. And globally, 46% of folks over 60 are disabled. So again, over 20% higher than those who self-reported as disabled on my survey. The article Inclusion of Older Adults in the Research and Design of Digital Technology says, according to the stereotype embodiment theory, exposure to the negative stereotypes of old adults during one's lifetime could lead to the implicit internalization of ageism. We live in a media culture obsessed with youth and vitality. We're all exposed to these messages every day. And here's an example. On this slide, I'm showing an image of an oil of Olay ad for an anti-aging cream with a model who looks to be in their late 20s or early 30s. There's a quote that says, "Join me in the battle against aging," and some smaller text that's difficult to read due to poor image resolution. Here and in most beauty ads, age is framed as something to be battled rather than something to be celebrated. Aging is the enemy. The University of Michigan put out a national poll on healthy aging regarding 3 forms of everyday ageism and found that 65% reported being exposed to ageist messaging. For example, jokes about old age, messaging implying seniors are less capable or unattractive or undesirable, beauty product marketing like the one we just saw. 45% reported experiencing ageism in their interpersonal interactions, including 22% who experienced folks assuming they don't know how to use their own cell phones and computers. And 36% reported feelings of internalized ageism, so holding negative beliefs about aging as something to avoid rather than celebrate. Okay, so now that we know what ageism is, let's talk about this term, the gray divide. Before we talk about the gray divide, let's look at a higher level concept, the digital divide. So the digital divide refers to social and knowledge gap associated with the worldwide diffusion and adoption of technology. It's associated with a reported negative impact on health, income, civic participation, and education. So essentially, folks are getting left behind if they're not part of the digital transitions in our society. And there's 2 levels of this divide. The first level divide is about access. So access to technology. Do people have devices? Do people have high-speed internet? Do they have direct access to technology? The second level of this digital divide is about skills, familiarity, and use of technology. So are people comfortable using digital technology to its full potential? And even within the second level, there's sort of 2 subcategories. One is a learning divide, which relates to the person's ability to learn how to use new digital technology. And the second is a content divide, which talks about the accessibility and clarity of text and content. So are people understanding the content in digital media? The gray divide refers to specifically the exclusion of older adults from digital technology by researchers, designers, marketing strategists, and entrepreneurs, as well as self-exclusion from digital technology by older adults. So when we talk about exclusion from these marketers and makers of technology, there's lots that goes into this. There's biased and stereotyped views of older people. The assumption that folks are less interested or capable of using digital technology, and seniors are seen as this homogenous group who are disinterested. And this is used as a justification to deprioritize and ignore older people in product design decisions. There's a dichotomy here where young folks are seen as, and excuse this term, I don't love it, but digital natives, meaning folks who grew up with the internet. So for example, I've had internet access at home since I was 12. As a geriatric millennial, I'm on the older side of who would be considered a digital native. Whereas seniors are often framed as digital immigrants. Again, don't love that term, but essentially the implication there is that they are lacking in digital literacy. And then, of course, the self-exclusion side of things can come from a lack of familiarity and exposure to digital technology, and it can come from internalized ageism. But seniors are not a monolith. There are diverse levels of interest, uses, and skills amongst older people. Someone who's 65 now was 37 when the internet was born. That's 2 years younger than me. Assuming that all seniors are incapable or disinterested in digital technology is just ignorant. I read a study called Dividing the Great Divide, Deconstructing Myths About Older Adults, Online Activities, Skills, and Attitudes. And in this in-depth research study with interviews of older folks, they divided people into 6 different categories of users: non-users, reluctant users, apprehensive users, basic users, go-getters, and savvy users. And this covers a range of folks who are basically unwilling to engage with digital technology, aka non-users, all the way up to savvy users who are confident daily users of technology and may even support other seniors in using technology. I'd like to focus on 2 of these groups and share some qualitative data from the survey I conducted. The first is apprehensive users. So we're going to skip over non-users and go straight to folks who are regular users, but maybe have apprehensive feelings. So these are folks who consider themselves to have low digital skills, whether they do or not. That's how they see themselves. They can feel anxious when using digital technology. They feel they have a lack of experience, skills, or exposure, and they often negatively compare themselves to younger people with respect to digital skills. It's worth noting that 98.3% of my survey respondents reported using the internet daily, if not all day, every day. And these uses were varied. So job tasks, email messaging, social media, video chats, banking, bills, taxes, news and research, monitoring stocks, streaming services, arranging travel, creating and engaging with art, medical care, journaling and blogging, and gaming. Yet many of these folks are apprehensive users. The article in Age Apart, The Effects of Intergenerational Contact and Stereotype Threat on Performance and Intergroup Bias says, elderly people performed worse on a memory test when they were primed with negative rather than positive stereotypes. When we communicate to seniors that they are not capable, it can become an anxious, self-fulfilling prophecy. This creates apprehensive users. Here's some of the frustrations I heard in my survey. Quote, seniors get very upset and frustrated, even angry that they can't do it. Even more so when their grandchildren, some very young, say, it's easy, let me do it. I picture phones and tablets flying through the air and through the window. Quote, it feels sometimes like I'm stupid because so very little is intuitive. Quote, I think there's an assumption that we all grew up with technology or all used it in our careers. Quote, it's a wonder I haven't shattered my phone / iPad, etc., because I have thrown them more than once. Using my phone, iPad, Dell makes me so anxious at times that I'm reduced to angry tears. Quote, I don't know enough to even guess what could be done to make it easier. I'm falling further behind every day. I'm now afraid to try something new in case I screw up my device and cause more work. The level of frustration these folks feel is palpable. These are people who had to interact with a Google survey, which requires CAPTCHA, and in some cases, 2-factor authentication, just to submit these answers. They're at a minimum capable, but apprehensive users. And the message they're receiving is that technology is not for them. Another group on my survey was savvy users. So these are folks who have a high level of digital skills and frequently engage in a wide range of online activities. They're confident and they lack anxiety many other older adults experience when using digital media, and they often help others to navigate these issues. When I asked if they get support from others with technology, 12% of respondents said they are the ones who supply support. A few also mentioned working in tech. Here's some of the things my savvy users said. I'm the one likely to be showing them how to do something. I've been on the internet since 1995 and had email and topic posting since 1991. Quote, I help run a cyber senior program that helps/teaches seniors how to use iPads and iPhones with other seniors available to teach Android or computers. Quote, virtually all the apps I use make accessing what I want easier. Quote, my job is heavily dependent on technology. It could be done without tech, but it's infinitely easier with tech. Quote, over nearly 30 years of internet use, things have continued to improve for me as a blind user. It has made newspapers and other sources of literature available almost instantly. These are positives that should be noted. Again, assuming that all older adults are even apprehensive users is a big mistake. Many seniors have been using the internet since its inception and have been helping to build it. Tim Berners-Lee, who we all know is the inventor of the internet, is now 67 years old himself. Now, a big factor in all of this is ageism in the tech workforce. One of the reasons we see so much ageism in our technology is because the workforce itself is extremely ageist. On my screen, I'm showing an image of Mark Zuckerberg making a very pouty, frowny face and wearing a suit. And the quote next to his face says, young people are just smarter. And this is used to justify why he hires young people. The article Ageism and the Age Discrimination in the Labor Market, a Macro Structural Perspective, says that to reflect the phenomenon of extreme ageism in modern high-tech and startup working environments, the term Silicon Valley ageism has been coined, which describes the dominant ageist attitudes of most enterprises in this sector. For context, the average age of workers at Meta is 28. The average age at LinkedIn and Salesforce is 29. The average age at Microsoft is 33. And more than 200 job seekers over the age of 40 who had applied for positions at Google were awarded a settlement of $11 million in an age discrimination lawsuit. This is a very real problem in our industry. In a 2018 American Association of Retired Persons survey found that 3 in 5 workers aged 45 and over have either witnessed age discrimination or experienced it themselves. And this comes from the article, What Does Ageism in Tech Look Like? So what are the costs of this? I mean, obviously for the workers themselves, there's barriers to recruitment and hiring, diminished conditions of work and employment, limited career development, diminished employment protection and rights. And then for the workplace itself, we're overlooking a huge pool of talent. Bias against older workers results in the loss of experienced workers and decreased efficiency in the workplace. We lose perspective and experience of older adults, and we have a tendency to build things for ourselves. When the workforce is lacking in any form of diversity, we run the risk of alienating people from our products. Let's talk about this. There's lots we could say about bias. I don't have time to get too deep into it for the sake of this talk, but 2 parts I want to talk about are unconscious bias and familiarity bias. And the concept that we make things for ourselves. Unconscious bias is when our brains make quick judgments based on automatic associations we have that are unconscious, including stereotypes. There's many forms of unconscious bias. Some examples include, assuming seniors won't use our app anyway, so we can design for a younger audience. Again, assuming seniors are a monolith that are uninterested in technology, or overlooking the needs of seniors who will not affect the bottom line, or they could just find someone younger to help them use our products. Familiarity bias is a preference to stay within our comfort zone and overvalue the choice that we already know. So for example, not being able to zoom out on our product and consider if the features and flows really make sense because we're just used to how they already work. In the case of seniors, perhaps assuming the way things work now should work for them. We have a big opportunity in tech. Let's pivot to this opportunity we have as technologists in overcoming ageism in our products and services. Firstly, generational wealth. Baby boomers are the wealthiest generation in history. Putting aside the moral argument about why ageism is trash and we should overcome it, from a purely capitalistic agenda angle, why aren't we building things that include more seniors and serving their needs? The tech industry is leaving an incredible amount of money on the table. According to the article Average Net Worth Per Generation, baby boomers are collectively 10 times wealthier than millennials. We millennials might be the largest age group and the most prevalent in the workforce, but we're broke. Many graduated from college or were just starting their careers during the Great Recession of 2008. Many have crushing student loan debt, increasing costs of living, making it harder to pay those things off. And then the COVID pandemic hit and people experienced layoffs, pay cuts, furloughs, and left millennials very vulnerable in the workforce. Just as a fun fact, Mark Zuckerberg himself owns 2% of all millennial wealth. So, there's not a lot to go around within our generation, and we're ignoring a very wealthy generation. Again, from Average Net Worth Per Generation article, in 2021, the average net worth of an American household aged 64 to 75 reached 1.2 million, while the average household under 35 had a net worth of just 76,000. The average 64 to 75-year-old American is 94% wealthier than the average 35-year-old. It goes on to say, in 2021, the baby boomer generation owned 44.1% of all real estate in the US. Millennials owned 11.2%. On top of this, we have an aging population. Where are we going to be in 2050? The population aged 60 years or over will reach 2.1 billion, which is more than double. The oldest old, again, I don't like that term, but referring to folks over 80, will triple. By 2050, there will be more people aged 60 years old and over than adolescents between 10 and 24. In 2015, there were 7 people in the traditional working ages of 20 to 64 for each older person age 65 and over. By 2050, there will only be 3.5, so half of working aged people for each person over 65. And this is according to the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. The UN World Population Aging Report indicates that each successive cohort of older persons can expect to live longer and possibly also have fewer adult children as a potential source of support in old age. In 2050, I will be 66. Most seniors will be what we call digital natives, meaning people who grew up with the internet. But we will still have accessibility needs that are not being met if we keep building things the way we do now. We will have fewer adult children to help meet our needs and half our traditional labor market from folks 20 to 64. This should be an obvious market for technology to serve. From the average net worth per generation, millennials are expected to inherit over $68 trillion from their predecessors by 2030, meaning that in less than 10 years' time, they will have accumulated as much as 5 times the wealth they currently hold. So while millennials might be broke now, by the time we're seniors, there will be a huge transfer of wealth. We should be serving the needs of seniors now and moving the tech industry to a model where inclusion is a given. So let's do better. How do we do that? From the inclusion of older adults and the research and design of digital technology, they say there seems to be a discrepancy between digital technologies that are developed and what older adults actually want and need. First and foremost, it's important to take stock of what seniors actually want and need rather than continuing down the path of bias we're so entrenched in. All seniors, regardless of digital savviness, deserve independence, autonomy, and social connection. These are things that could be supported with the right technology. On the screen, I'm showing a data table with 6 types of activities, how many Canadian seniors need assistance with each activity, and what percentage of seniors have these needs unmet. So when it comes to preparing meals, 18.8% of seniors have unmet needs. Housework, 27.6% of seniors have unmet needs. Heavy household chores, 33.5% of seniors have unmet needs. Running errands, 24.4% of seniors have unmet needs. finances, 12.1% of seniors have unmet needs, and personal care, 25% of seniors have unmet needs. Shouldn't we be making more accessible service apps? The article Inclusion of Older Adults in the Research and Design of Digital Technology says, an artificial intelligence in assistive technology can assist older people with cognitive impairment to continue living in their homes by developing technology to support their functional independence. With an aging population, we're going to need more ways to create autonomy and independence in the homes of seniors rather than relying on institutions that are already failing our seniors. The article goes on to say, the internet as a communication tool has been associated with a lower level of loneliness, elicited closer family ties, and led to greater overall connection to society. For example, I think many of us have seen how the adoption of video chat technology like FaceTime and Zoom by senior family members during periods of isolation during the pandemic increased connection and decreased loneliness. And here's what the survey respondents on my survey were actually asking for. And just to recap, I had 58 responses from older adults, the majority of whom were between the ages of 60 and 85. I asked, are there any activities that have become more difficult or easier for you now that they are online? For example, getting customer support from a chat service versus talking to someone on the phone, booking an appointment, etc. Please feel free to share specific experiences if you're comfortable. One big theme that came up was customer support, or as the subtitle of this slide says, AI chatbots are the worst. And that's a quote from one of the respondents. A big theme in this was frustration with chatbots and a longing for meaningful customer support via telephone. Actually, the majority of my respondents talked about this. Quote, online chats are very frustrating. I've never had success. Inevitably, I end up having to speak with a human, which is preferable. Quote, chat robots are often not useful because they only know how the standard info, which I could find in an FAQ. Quote, talking with a human has become more difficult. AI chatbots are the worst. Quote, chat features are a pain. Gets easier when you get a real person and not pre-programmed answers. Quote, chatbots are a waste of my time, phony social graces, and they don't understand nuance. Quote, it would be preferable to be given the option right at the beginning to continue online or speak to a human. Quote, support calls and chats say my screen reader is causing the problem. In fact, it's their site's inaccessible access that is. Another question I asked is, what do you wish websites and or apps did differently to make your experience smoother? Language problems were a big theme. People are asking for plain language and clear instructions. And again, this relates to the content divide that was discussed under the gray divide. We need to help people better understand our products and avoid jargon. If we want people to keep up with learning our products and avoid exacerbating the learning divide, we need to provide easily discoverable and clear instructions. Quote, I prefer clear language in design and design principles implemented in words. Quote, having a very easy to follow using step-by-step instructions helps. Often YouTube is easier to follow. I'd like to note that 26% of respondents mentioned YouTube and using YouTube tutorials, even though I never asked anything about YouTube. This is a big indicator that people are not understanding things directly within the product. Quote, using my medical clinic site and the site of a social service agency recently, I could not discern what I was actually supposed to do or not do to access services in either of these two agencies, in 3 tries for both at decoding. And yet, I'm a careful reader who can overcome disabilities to complete a PhD, research, publish, etc. Quote, do not assume I know every step or what they mean when they use initials. Quote, I wish that they would take you through the process step by step and more importantly, let you make adjustments when you've made a mistake. I have in the past left a website because I couldn't figure out how to make a change. Quote, oh, sorry, not a quote. Number 2, standard patterns, easy navigation, and meaningful search. So people don't want to have to relearn how to use technology for every service. We need to stop over-indexing on delight and cleverness and move towards standard patterns and clarity. Quote, I find it impossible to navigate many sites. This includes medical, government, booking appointments, and buying tickets. Quote, websites vary a great deal. Some are really circular and unclear. Quote, sites that provide search need to provide good search. Quote, make sure menus are at the top or on a sidebar, not at the bottom of a web page. Quote, I'm always getting messed up on alphabet sites because they seem to be different for the sake of being different. Quote, my bank site was user-friendly. Then in 2020, they did a redesign that makes the site less friendly because it's now hard to navigate. It appears to be designed for Millennials and Gen Z generations. Yeah, it probably was designed for Millennials and Gen Z, yet boomers have 10 times more wealth to use on these banking apps. Quote, make search engines that actually return results related to what was requested instead of assuming you meant the most popular result. I am so very frustrated with the results that these AIs assume I want. Another thing folks are asking for is clear privacy protection, easy cancellation of services, and financial consent. Trust was a big theme in these survey responses. People want to understand what they are signing up for and why, how their data will be protected, and how to cancel services they no longer wish to use. People feel trapped in creating logins and passwords, and some reported getting tricked into paying for things they never wanted. This, to me, feels like digital elder abuse. Quote, I feel my reluctance to use a lot of apps and websites is due to the amount of personal/contact information they ask for. If you comply, you frequently end up being bombarded with unwanted communication and feel that too much is known about you by entities you know nothing about. The downside of this for me is that I could probably benefit from a richer range of information and services if this aspect was not a huge deterrent for me. Quote, I'm afraid to open a lot of things and fear that I will be tracked or trapped. Quote, fear of hacking via phishing emails limits my experimentation. Quote, there are so many services and information sources you cannot access without registering and creating a password. Guest accounts, people. Let's give people guest accounts. Quote, people have no idea that they are giving these companies legal access to their HIPAA-protected data. Quote, renewals that are automatic and hidden in the small print, they never seem to be for my benefit. Quote, a couple of times I've ended up paying for something I didn't want. Quote, I once tried to fix a problem I had with my newspaper delivery and I went online as directed. I got to one page and pushed the icon button and continued only to find out that I ended up paying a completely different company that had posted an ad on the star page. I ended up having to cancel my credit card because the company ran out of the Cayman Islands, which is apparently notorious for these scam products. That sucks. I asked, do you feel that websites and or apps make assumptions about what you should intuitively understand? For example, using a gear icon to represent a settings menu. Perhaps the text settings would be more intuitive. Label your dang icons. Icons are all over the web and apps. I'm constantly trying to convince clients to reduce their reliance on these symbols to convey meaning, as there's a lot of assumptions baked into these icons, which can be very unintuitive. We in tech have familiarity bias when it comes to icons that most folks do not have across not only generations, but cultural contexts too. And here I got called out on my own unconscious bias. Someone said, what's a gear icon? Even with the question I posed, I assumed folks would understand what a gear icon is. This comes from my own familiarity bias. Quote, I can't even understand the language in the brackets here, referring to the gear icon. So yes, there are a lot of assumptions. If the information presented in a help page or by company representatives used everyday language and descriptors instead of language or word combinations that have been newly created to explain the various technologies, it would go a long way in making them feel accessible to older users. Quote, icons are based on outdated notions, e.g. floppy disk icon to mean save, or are inscrutable, e.g. wavy lines and a circle to mean, well, I still haven't worked that one out. Quote, I'm always having to point out to my 83-year-old mother that an icon is what she needs to tap to do something. One of the most confusing is either the ellipses icons or the share icon, the rectangle with the arrow pointing out at the top for her. Quote, tiny, incomprehensible icons, especially on mobile. It's often difficult to tell the difference between them, let alone what they mean. Quote, I coach other seniors on iPhones and iPads, and they often don't realize what various icons mean, e.g. 3 lines or 3 dots to indicate another menu. Quote, label icons. Don't assume everyone gets your cute ideas. Cognitive disabilities are the largest disability group. When you also have people from other countries who don't have the same cultural references for your cute icons, help everyone out and include words that make the functionality clear. Quote, graphics without labels become guesswork for me to navigate. And just a couple of additional recommendations. Co-design with seniors. There's a really great article, The Inclusion of Older Adults in the Research and Design of Digital Technology, that talks about ways to do this. The main point for me is to include seniors from the research and ideation stage for meaningful co-design, rather than solely asking for feedback on a prototype that's largely realized. Don't make assumptions about what older people want. In terms of the sessions themselves, if you're going to run usability sessions with seniors, we need to consider the accessibility of the setting and communication, prefer people's natural environment or remote options if you can, the accessibility of the tools and methods that you use, and interpret their contributions meaningfully. Please don't dismiss the feedback of seniors as just, something to ignore. These valuable sessions need to be deeply considered and listened to. Quote, many sites clearly don't test with accessibility seniors who may not intuitively grasp what is needed and how to provide it or obtain it. Quote, the designer should use the website and app as if they were the user. The joke in our house is that they're designed by 18-year-olds who don't actually use them. Quote, test with older users and people with disabilities of all types. Blind screen reader users are great at finding the underlying structural semantic issues. Those with cognitive disabilities and the aging population will help you reduce the overbusyness of sites where they don't communicate clearly. We also need to hire seniors. The best way to minimize ageism in our digital technology is to have folks around who we might otherwise be overlooking. From Ageism in the Workforce, from the UN World Population Aging Report, I should say, many governments are increasing the statutory ages of retirement in an effort to prolong the labor force participation of older adults and improve the financial sustainability of pensions. So ageism in the workforce will come to bite us when we no longer have a labor market that can sustain our global economy. Quote, hire devs and QA staff over 50. Don't give them fast computers and large screens. Quote, major providers need to hire people my age. So, folks who responded to my survey are calling this out very directly. And lastly, respect the web content accessibility guidelines. 1/3 of seniors have hearing loss. 1/3 of seniors have vision loss. 1/3 of seniors have serious mobility issues. 40% of seniors have a cognitive impairment, and 10% of seniors have dementia. The web content accessibility guidelines have criteria that support all of these disabilities. Of course, it's only the starting point, but it's an important starting point. The next time someone pushes back about whether WCAG needs to be addressed and questions the business case, point them to these facts and the wealth they are leaving on the table. So thank you. That's my talk. I really want to thank DQ organizers and volunteers, the interpreters today. I know it was a lot of words. Thanks everyone for making this possible. Thank you to the audience for watching. Thank you to my 58 survey responses, my brother for pulling academic articles I didn't have access to, my mom for distributing the survey amongst her seniors groups, and to my family for being patient with me while I spent hours researching this and ranting at the dinner table. My slides will include all the resources at the end, and that's my talk.
Thanks, Alex. Really, really awesome presentation and filled with so much great content. We have some questions to dive in here for the last 4 minutes. So the first question is asking, is it okay to ask the age of your participants during user research or usability testing, or is it better to ask about their technology awareness upfront?
Great question.
Yeah, you might have touched on this, but it's worth repeating, I think.
Yeah, actually, I found in one of the studies I read that you can ask for age, but ask for it at the end. If you ask for age at the beginning, that actually sets bias up where people are going to experience implicit ageism. So let them fill out their survey as though you're never going to ask, and then you can ask if you really need that demographic data.
Awesome. That's a really good point. Another question here is asking, what advice would you give to web development teams to create better products for older people? And I think you commented on hiring older people, of course, but besides hiring older people and usability testing, is there other things that they should keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, ask them what they want. Co-design, right? So we tend to save usability testing till the end, and that's a problem, right? We need to bring people in at the beginning before we've even created the thing. Save a lot of pain and money and budget actually by asking people what they want. So bring them into research at the beginning. And then when it comes to the end, yeah, we have to be respecting WCAG as a starting point to make sure that we're, having captions, having high contrast. A lot of folks in my survey asked for dark mode. WCAG doesn't require dark mode, but it's a really good thing to support. So I would consider seniors as partners throughout the development process, bring them in at the beginning and keep them involved.
Awesome. An interesting question here, which is kind of theoretical. So does ageism only cover the seniors, or does it actually happen to every generation, especially in technology?
Yeah, so ageism at a high level can be discrimination towards any age group, but it's typically against seniors. So, depending on who's defining it, you're going to see that most definitions say towards a particular age group, which focuses on seniors, but it can be like, for example, we might be excluding young people from things by using overly technical language or something like that. But I think it's really important to focus on seniors within ageism.
Awesome. Looks like we have one more minute here, so I'll have time for one more question. I believe you mentioned places where people can go to recruit research participants, especially for those who are maybe like reluctant or apprehensive users. If you have any recommendations for folks, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so in terms of where to go, I think it really depends on where you are geographically, what kind of services you have around you. I'd reach out to seniors organizations. Like my mom is in a club called the Probus Club, which is like a seniors group. A lot of them filled out the survey. But I think it's less about where you find people and more about respecting their participation. So for example, make sure consent is clear, right? Like don't put a monitoring service on their device or something like that if they don't know. Allow people to have an exit strategy from the sessions if they are not comfortable. And if you can, give people their own environment to do this research in. So remote sessions. And if you must do something in an in-person environment, make sure that space itself is accessible and ask people going in what their access needs are.
Awesome. I want to thank you again, Alex. Super great presentation. A really, really good time listening to all of your content. So a reminder for folks, you'll be able to access the recording and you can look through the slides after the fact. And I hope you have a fun time at the rest of your AxeCon today. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.